64 game, retro gaming goodness.
Hey, Bastish BF for 64K and welcome to another episode of The Unconverted. And today we're going to have a look at another 3 more games that never originally got conversions to the Commodore 64. And the 3 games we're going to have a look at are
SeaQuest, released in 1983 by Activision on the Atari 2600, Tutankham, released in 1982 by Konami in the arcades, and KC Munchkin, released on the Magnavox Odyssey 2 in 1981 and published by Philips Consumer Electronics Corporation.
So let's start having a look at all 3 games, plus a look at the original versions.
SeaQuest was another in a long line of popular games by game designer Steve Cartwright over at Activision. He also gave us classics on the 2600 like Frostbite and Mega Mania. SeaQuest was a simple game like all 2600 releases, with you manning a submarine as you try to rescue a bunch of divers. You had missiles you could blast at other subs and sharks as you picked up the divers and returned them to the surface. You also had to keep track of your oxygen, which needed to be replenished as well. Each time you surface, the game's difficulty raises slightly, so it basically encourages you to load up your sub to the max, but risk losing everyone with one dumb mistake. It's classic arcade tropes and was another popular 2600 game by Activision. The new C64 version was released in December 2021 by Haplo, who is from Sydney, Australia, and he also did the conversion to the C64 of Spider Fighter, also a 2600 game by Activision. It features a nice loader screen replicating the 2600's box art, and a funky cool SID tune from Richard Bayless that just gets your toes tapping immediately. The graphics are almost the same, but the C64's color palette makes it a little bit less vibrant, but the sprites are bigger and replicated quite well. The sound effects are completely different, which is a good thing, especially for the missile firing, as I always found that on Atari to be kinda grating, although I do miss the aeroplane landing sound effect that Activision put in almost every one of their 2600 games. It's again simple fun. It plays well, and it's a nice time waster as you try to chase that score if you've got 10 minutes to spare. I still think it's super cool that almost the entire Activision 2600 back catalog is slowly getting converted to the C64 in the last few years. Next was Tutankham, based on the 1982 arcade game by Konami and released by Stern in North America, which received a massive amount of 8-bit ports, but not one to the C64. The arcade was a multi-directional scrolling maze game where you're an adventurer looting King Tut's pyramids of all its treasure while avoiding or blasting all bats, snakes, and other creatures as you steal everything. You needed to pick up keys to open other passages and have what appears to be a laser gun which you can use to blast enemies. The trick is you can only shoot left or right, which adds a lot of strategy to the mix, especially when avoiding enemy encounters from the top or bottom. I played this as a kid in the arcade only a couple of times. I simply found the game to be way too hard, and it was definitely aimed at the veteran Robotron crowd, as opposed to the more casuals that just wanted to have some fun in the arcade gaming. This new C64 version was put together by Luca Carminati of LC Games, who also did a nice version of Bagman on the C64, which I looked at in New Retro episode number 31. This C64 version was released in February 2022 and is a brilliant interpretation of the arcade. The game is practically the same, but doesn't have that Defender-style radar system at the top of the screen, which, to be honest, was completely pointless in this game, at least I always thought. The sound effects are way better as well and far less abrasive, and thank goodness Luca omitted the footstep sounds from the arcade, which were super annoying. It moves at a really fast pace, but not as fast as the arcade, and is very responsive, and I really like the look of the graphics. It's close to the arcade, but with a nice chunky C64 flair to it. It's still a tough game though, so be warned, but it does come with selectable difficulty settings, and the game is also NTSC and PAL compatible for all C64 owners to enjoy. And as of making this, LC Games put out Tutankham Returns, a sort of C64 exclusive version made up of 7 new stages using this game's engine, so if you want more Tutankham, it's available. And the last game for today is called KC Munchkin, based on the Magnavox Odyssey 2 version, which was released way back in 1981. It was basically a clone game of Namco's Pac-Man, so much so that Atari sued, as they had the home license version of Pac-Man at the time, and Munchkin was eventually pulled off the store shelves 1 year later. So is it that much of a clone? The simple answer is yes, without a doubt. Although compared to Atari's Pac-Man 2600 version, which is horribly bad on all levels, and yes, I'm saying this because I owned it as a kid, and even then I knew it was a dumpster fire. KC Munchkin was way faster and more responsive, had gameplay quirks like actually having to chase the dots, and an ever-changing random stage layout. At the end of the day though, it is Pac-Man, but still a fun variant on Namco's classic. This new C64 version was released by Pretzel Logic in May 2022. Due to KC Munchkin's legal issues, it never saw the light of day on the C64 until now, with this wonderful tribute to this fairly obscure game. This version adds a lot to the plate, with both the original Magnavox version, which is replicated almost to the T as far as graphics go, as well as an enhanced arcade version which has a C64 graphical facelift and features 96 new levels. Both versions also have a nice big bouncing SID tune accompanying the action, which adds oodles of atmosphere to the game. I had a lot of fun with this, with both versions, and all its variations in the mazes, disappearing walls, the chasing of the dot when you get down to the last one, which is very fun. And this all takes what could have been a simple Pac-Man clone and adds enough little bits of personality to make it very much worth playing on the old C64. It's fun and is definitely worth checking out.
And that's it for another great bunch of conversions to the Commodore 64. I just want to thank everybody who made these possible for all of us to enjoy. And there'll be links in the video description to download all these new games. Thanks for joining me, Bastish B, at 64K. I hope you had a good time. And if you can please like and subscribe, that'll be greatly appreciated. And I'll see you next time. Cheers.